to the agenda. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
David, David had requested an opportunity to add something to the agenda tonight. So if you guys are comfortable, we'll just kind of jump over that and see if he materializes for us. And when he does, we'll come back to that. In the meantime, public comment, and I don't see any public. Is there anybody? No. Nope, nobody for public comment. So consent agenda, we have a couple of sets of minutes to approve. Is there a motion?
I motion that we approve the minutes.
Excellent. Is there a second?
I second.
All righty, thank you very much. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Don't hear anybody, so it is good to go. Old business, refined look at the future mining park improvements. Rochelle.
Yeah, I'll kick it off and then I'm going to hand it over to Kurt, who we're all familiar with and has been with us on this journey from the start. But this is another opportunity for the Parks Board to provide input for the Mine Park improvement project that we're working on. And as we've progressed through this process, we've brought it to you, brought it to council, had an open house, bringing it back to you. And as this is becoming more and more refined, we definitely appreciate input from you all that will eventually go back to the council on October 21st. And then we do have another scheduled open house. So an opportunity to provide additional input. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kurt, who has a presentation and is happy to lead that.
Thank you, Rochelle. And as always, it's great to see everyone and be here tonight to talk a little bit more about Mine Park. And we have been busy over the last month or so, as Rochelle mentioned, the public open house. We also distributed an online survey. And so we have some of the results that we want to share with you. And then, based on comments that we have heard both from you, public open house, and other constituents, we've begun to refine the master plan. So what I'd like to do is just share my screen and go through presentation that we have tonight. So here we go. So I'll start out by sharing. This is the existing conditions plan that we shared with you at our initial meeting, also at the public open house. And part of this was to focus everyone's attention into the areas that we would be looking at. That would include the play area over here, the kind of smaller outdoor seating area, the creek, pathways, and also the parking lot. And as you may recall, as part of that kind of initial meeting, we came back and we had suggested a number of things. One is based on some of the previous planning work, and then also all of us kind of ground sleuthing, looking at how we might make the park pathways that go through the site more ADA accessible. So kind of knitting them into the existing contours, really trying to minimize any sort of tree removal within those areas, but generally make it a little bit more accessible for people of all ages and abilities. So that was one area of focus. And then the other one was the creek restoration. And the previous effort enlisted a habitat consultant who provided a series of recommendations. And we haven't really expanded too much on that at this point. Really, the next step for that would be to garner funding for it And then there's a whole process that we would go through with the Corps of Engineers, a little bit more detail in that respect. So what we have begun to do, though, is to take a little bit closer look at the outdoor seating area, the parking lot, play area, which we shared some options with you before, and then also the outdoor restroom and shelter. So just taking a tiny step back, I wanted to kind of share some of the results of this online survey and kind of integrate it into the presentation. So these were 2 questions that we asked about No Name Creek. How many do members of your household play in the creek? 50% said yes. 50% said no. I think just the one thing to keep in mind with this question and also the second one, which it seems like a lot of people are interested in the restoration, is you might recall as part of the master plan effort, it doesn't really show up on this, but oh yes it does, is that what we wanted to do was really be much more strategic about how we allow access down into the creek. So certainly there'll be areas that we repair and restore it, but where we do feel it's important to get down there, we actually provide for that access. So these were 2 questions that we had regarding the creek. And then these 2 questions focused on the larger sitting area and how you access it. So many people said that they either bring their own chair or sit on a blanket, and they find that it's very comfortable, or it's fine, and then about 30% less than ideal. So I think that's kind of a good segue into this plan. And so if you had your head kind of rotated, I guess maybe to the left to kind of straighten it up, because we kind of switched the orientation on the plan. So this is kind of the outdoor seating area, the parking lot next to City Hall, and that smaller parking and the play area right in here. The one thing about this area, you may recall that the original master plan had a series of seat walls kind of interspersed within the wooded area. And we went out a number of times with Rochelle, Tiana, and John and looked at it and just kind of scratched our heads a bit, because number one, it seemed like any sort of seating within this area right in here would more than likely, number one, impact the trees. But number two, if you can imagine like an 18-inch high wall where people are sitting on, and then people in the back are kind of like sitting on blankets, it's like, are they obstructing the views of those people that are on those walls? And so we also had a discussion with the city council members, and they urged us to really think more about how people access that hillside seating rather than actually providing additional seating itself. So I'm going to kind of zoom into this area right in here. It's just a black and white drawing, but what this shows you is the 3 existing shelters, kind of all these stairs which kind of go down, existing stairs that lead down to the shelters, and then one stairway that leads straight down in here. This also shows the existing upper parking lot and then the smaller parking lot. And I think both, really Tiana and Rochelle and John were mentioning that right now, sometimes cars actually kind of start coming down here because it's all asphalt and it looks like it's a place to actually drive down into the park. So we took this and we said, okay, well, how do we really make the circulation better, the approach into the park a better experience, and then also provide accessibility. So let me take you on a little tour and kind of what we're thinking. Number one is this parking lot right now just kind of abuts up against the woodland. And what we discovered is actually this parking lot is wider than it needs to be. So what we've done is we've taken the same number of stalls that you have right now and actually pushed it north to allow for a walkway along here, which is ideal. It's existing pavement now. We'll just put in new pavement for a walkway, and you still meet all the codes for the parking. So that seemed to us to be kind of a win-win. The other thing that we've done in here is right now the throat to this drive aisle going into the parking lot is much wider than it needs to be. So we've narrowed it up to meet code. We've kind of formalized, we'd repave this parking lot in here, have basically the same number of spaces, but we would add an ADA space, which you currently don't really have. We'd add more planting here in the back. We'd probably trim down some of those large arborvitae shrubs or replace them because you really can't see into the park there. It's kind of a security issue. But what we do here is we put in a new walkway that might be like concrete and a small curb right in here. So this area, just in terms of kind of an entry, it clearly delineates a vehicular way and a pedestrian way. So it separates those two out. So that we felt was a really good move. And then as you make your way down, there might be some sort of basalt wall, similar to what we're doing at Cedar Park. That could be a sitting wall or something right here with signage at the entry that you're entering Minnick Park. Continuing to kind of take you on this tour, the other thing is that we're adding an ADA path that kind of winds through the forest right here that connects to two ADA stalls. And then we continue that path down along here, right next to every single one of these dots is an existing tree. So this is an access that you don't have right now, but we feel it's a really important one just in terms of getting people down along here into this kind of general area. And then I'll just kind of toggle back and forth. You see all the stairs and everything that you have there. What we've done is we felt, well, you really don't need separate stairs to each of these shelters. You could actually come down one stairway, hang a left or hang a right, or maybe it's the other direction, but it's all level in here. So that really, right now, it's like when you walk there, it's all handrails and all stairs. And that's really all you see. So we thought, well, in terms of making kind of a nice and kind of a grander gesture down into here, we eliminate all of that and we connect it up with a path. Everything else in here kind of remains the same. We're not putting any additional seating. We imagine that ultimately there will be new shelters. There will be a new deck with an ADA access here to provide kind of full accessibility. And then here's where you see those other little overlooks. So we can go back to this, but I'll just kind of continue on because there's a couple more things. One is the Fantasy Forest Playground, which we've talked and we shared some options before. The other was perhaps locating a restroom. And we had thought, oh, do you put a restroom kind of up here, or is it better to have one closer to the play area? And after looking at all the slopes, you know, all these contours in here, it seemed to be more appropriate to actually have it located down in here. And one of the survey questions was, how do you feel about a second restroom facility? And as you can see, both critical and pretty important, you know, that's almost 80% of the respondents mentioned that. So what we're showing right now is this is the existing play area that will be renovated. We're showing a new pathway because there isn't one right now that actually connects to the play area and then winds down, connects to the existing parking lot. And then this is both a combination shelter and restroom. For those of you that have driven by Cedar Park, we're eagerly awaiting the opening in a couple weeks. It will be very similar to that, where it has two-seat kind of, or two-stall, or yeah, two different restrooms, and then an area for picnic tables. This is the existing path that skirts on the other side of the play area. So as part of the refined plan, we wanted to suggest a location there. There's a little kind of planting area kind of in front, but good connections to the parking lot and the rest of the park. So the next thing is, and I'll just skip ahead just to this slide just for a second. These were the playground options that we shared before, and also with the at the public open house, and then through the public survey. And I think the response was basically people picking out the best parts they felt of each of the schemes. I think at the public open house, people liked the idea of something that seemed natural, though they liked the inclusivity and the ramps associated with this particular feature. And so it was, you know, everyone saw something just slightly different. And then when we went to the online survey, what this kind of showed is how they would rate each of the options, and option 1 and 2 were 3.1, and then option 3 was 2.7. And then they said, you know, what style fits the best. And you know, the things with these online surveys is you'd like to ask 100 different questions for, you know, exactly what they like. And so I think this was really more of a, excuse me, kind of an overall kind of input and thought about each of these different play areas. So we took this information, and I know that you've seen these before, and we had a couple thoughts about kind of next steps. One is we certainly feel like we need to re-engage the public to get more information and perhaps share some more options. And so we don't think that process is finished. Certainly we'll be coming back to you in the future as well. The one thing is with, and just using Cedar Park as an example, you know, this board, along with Rochelle and Tiana and John, have been such advocates about truly creating something special for City of Sandy, and honestly, you know, for the surrounding communities as well. And when we were going through these options, and I think it's reflected a little bit in the survey, is, you know, everyone says, okay, yeah, that's kind of nice, but, you know, can you do something more? And I think we heard that from this group as well. And so we have worked with, we haven't constructed anything, but we've talked on a number of occasions with another group that's called Earthscape. And they do natural structures. They both do ones that are kind of, quote, off the shelf, but they also do custom ones as well. Most recently, they completed this, which is a troll. I would say it's life size. I haven't seen a troll before, but I would say if I did see a troll, it would probably be this size. It's quite large. It's all playable. You can see kids can kind of climb on it. This is the shoe or the foot. They can climb up through this. There's a slide coming out of it. It's a very large structure. Something like that may not be appropriate for this play area in terms of its size, but this gives you an example of how imaginative and creative they can be, and different parts of things that they supply. In fact, these elements right here are standard. They're that they supply. And they have both a mix of things that are geared towards perhaps older kids, although, you know, younger kids, you know, they'll climb on almost anything, but also more kind of tot lot like structures as well. So as we began, and we wanted to get your feedback as well, as we began to kind of look at, these options, which are just kind of standard pieces, given kind of the history and the thinking that you've had behind many of your other parks, do we actually look at something that's maybe a little bit more I guess more progressive, or something that is state of the art? When we shared this with your parks group, they mentioned, well, maybe this is Sasquatch. Maybe we're not doing a troll, because that's kind of nestled in the woods. So we wanted to share that and get your feedback in terms of thinking about next steps with the play area. So that's the end of the presentation, and definitely would love to hear your feedback on all these different components that we've shared with you today.
Excellent, thank you. That was a good presentation, good information. Staff, anything else you want to add to that?
I see a few hands up, so if we want to turn it over to the Parks Board, nothing to add, but yeah.
That would be great. Kimberly, what you got?
I just was gonna say that I love the earthscapes. All of those I think would be much more fitting than the original options that we were shown. I feel like they would blend in better and kind of be along a similar theme to what's already there, and probably would be more widely accepted by the community, since we wouldn't be replacing the wood sort of things with something like plastic and kind of super colorful.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, I also like the Earthscape, and I was thinking Sasquatch as well. So I was on the same wavelength as the parks team. But yeah, Sasquatch would be perfect for that. But I really like the Earthscape idea. Like kind of what Kimberly was saying, I feel it would be unique to the community, because like Cedar Park was amazing too, because it's kind of like unique in itself. So if Sandy can become known for like unique parks that like have this like feature that people want to come to and visit, I think it'd be all the better, because that gives us pride in our parks. And yeah, I really like that Earthscape idea and pursuing that.
All righty, that's good. Alex, welcome. And David, welcome. Will, do you have any comments?
No, I mean, ditto on the Earthscape. I'm probably more traditional than Sasquatch, but that's okay too. I mean, it would certainly be unique.
How about you, Alex? Anything there float your boat?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't unmute for some reason. I'm on my phone. I can't figure this thing out on my phone. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just gonna agree with Kim. I really like those options, just to blend in a little bit better kind of what we have. But yeah, no other comment really.
All righty, and David. David, any comments? Oh, well, maybe David's dishing up his dinner right now. I will share my feelings. I like the Earthscape also. I must admit I was a little nonplussed with some of the other options, the more traditional playground manufactured options, and I'm excited to see this. I will put in a plug for the troll. I know that there's a number of them throughout the country. I know people that actively travel around and seek them out, try and find them and see them. So I don't think a troll is necessarily a bad thing, although it doesn't quite follow our theme. I particularly enjoyed the next set of slides on the Earthscapes one. Yeah, the lower right hand corner. almost looks like part of the city logo, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Right from the color palette to the shape of it. And it'd be kind of fun, I think, if we can incorporate something like that into the playground design, just a little subliminal message that they're in Sandy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my feeling. David, are you there?
I am severe technical difficulties tonight, but I'm here.
Oh, good. Did you have any comments?
I don't. I mean, the whole park looks amazing. I'm still not really keen on the upgrades. I like the old fashioned. I like the landscape of it, but I mean, I understand that change has to happen.
All righty. What all were we looking for, staff?
Yeah,
Uh,
Don, just one more thing. Alex looks like she has her hand back in the air.
Oh,
So if you want
Alex.
to.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
I was just gonna tell you guys, if you want to see anything like that, like the troll type thing in person, there's actually a park, and I can get you the name. There's a park in Hillsborough that was just opened. They have that, and it's funny enough, my company sponsored it. So I just like found out a whole thing about it, but it's really, really cool. So got a tour of that, and it's really worth your time if you don't mind going out that way.
I know I happened to be up in New England this past week, and I know there was a park up there that had 3 of them. And
Oh, so cool.
while we did not make it out to that park, we were kind of sad. We were hoping to, we just didn't quite make it, and it would have been a cool thing.
Great, thank you.
So Kurt, any other feedback you're looking for?
Well, and I'll just tag team with Rochelle. I think that we haven't hit the end of this master plan process. As Rochelle mentioned, we're still going to go out one more time. I think with all any and all of these, certainly funding contingent. And but they all, will ultimately need more detail in terms of documentation, topographic surveys. So I'm sure we'll be coming back with regular updates as the design progresses.
Excellent. Before we leave this, I do want to kind of add 1 or 2 more comments on it.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
first one is number 9 there, the new proposed restroom
Yes.
and shelter area. I think that's an excellent addition. And I think that's in a good place for it. Near the parking lot, it'll serve the general public if they're in need and passing by, but more importantly, having it near the playground, I think is absolutely critical. And that's about the only reasonably flat space that it could go that I could imagine. I like the idea of the enhanced ADA accessibility. I think that's very important. Up on the 3 existing shelters, the one that's always intrigued me the most, I think, is the middle one, has that little deck off of it, and I think that little deck off of it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'd like to see that preserved, and if there's any way of incorporating a little bit more of that onto one of the other shelters, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
The ADA access to those shelters comes off what I would consider the third of the 3 working from left to right. Is that correct?
This one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This one is flush and at grade.
Okay, good. So, but that'll still serve as wheelchair access to the other
Yes.
2. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it will.
Okay, very good. And I like some of the tweaks. I like the additional pathway that you have label number 2 coming off the ADA spaces. And I like the improvements on the other auxiliary parking lot. Although I'd caution not to neck that down too far in that opening, that makes it tricky, because you got kind of a downhill slope with a curve there.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of watch out for that a little bit. People tend to cut those off a little bit, but as long as you got plenty of room, I'm good with that too.
And it looks
Okay.
like Ryan's hands in the air again.
Okay, Ryan.
Yes, I want to second what Don advised about the ADA access and that being, it's really nice to see that. I also agree with the bathroom location as being like the father of a kid potty training right now. It's really important to have the bathroom close to the playground, and have that accessibility, and also to the parking lot. And I was also kind of curious about about is there going to be additional need for funding on the consulting the getting the architects or the engineers regarding the No Name Creek restoration, or where is that going to be coming from? I was just kind of curious about that.
Kurt, do you want to, I can
Well,
answer that, or?
Yeah, I think that we have preliminary plans right now. The firm that did the original work is Pacific Habitat Services, who we've worked extensively with on different projects. And so they've given us the baseline. I think when funding becomes available, we'll probably need to re-engage them, both to refine the plans, because they did the original kind of survey. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. So, things have probably shifted a little bit, and then they'll help in kind of navigating through the all the jurisdictional agencies as well.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments before we go away? Not seeing any. All righty. Okay. Well, why don't we, Kurt, if that was enough, then great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm
great.
very excited to watch how this continues to refine. I'm excited about this project. I think it's going to be a great project to submit for another grant along the lines of Cedar Park, maybe pick up some funding assistance in that regard.
Definitely. Okay. Well, good. Well, thanks again for all your comments, and have a nice evening.
Great. Before we move on to new business, I'd like to circle back to changes to the agenda. As I'd mentioned, I did have a little conversation yesterday with David, and David had requested an opportunity to speak to a potential addition to the agenda this evening, or possibly to an addition for a upcoming meeting. So David, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you. Again, sorry for being late. My computer was not wanting to function, so now I'm sitting on my cell phone instead. The changes to the agenda, so that I would like to propose is we have a couple basketball courts at our different parks, but none of them are covered, which means they're unusable almost 9 months out of the year. They're made for walking around now. They're made for just messing up and screwing around in. And my proposal would be to, at some point, if funding ever becomes available, to put a cover over one of them or both of them, and make it so they're usable year round. So as long as the kids can get there, they can go into there and they can stay dry. I mean, it keeps them out of trouble. It keeps them active even in the winter months.
All righty. Well, we have an option. We can either dive into this topic a little bit, or we can tonight, or we can schedule it for an upcoming agenda, possibly in our next meeting, and give staff a chance to kind of put together some thoughts and ideas about this suggestion. How are people feeling about that? Kimberly.
I wouldn't mind talking about it if we have the space for it tonight. It's something that I've also wondered. I have 2 kids that play basketball, and we have a hard time getting any kind of practice time in because the gyms are always really full. And then during the season, it's really gross weather. So we end up driving to Canby, where my partner has access to gyms because he's a maintenance guy there. And we play there, but that's kind of a hassle. It would be nice to have something closer to home.
That it would. Alex, Will, Ryan, any thoughts?
If the staff is ready for the discussion about that, I'd be all for it. Because I'm interested in that as well. So yeah.
Okay, why don't we do that then? 3 people, and I'm fine with it also. Let's go ahead and kind of delve into this topic a little bit further. David, you mentioned that we have the 2 courts. I'm assuming you're talking about Timberline Park and Barlow Park. I
Yes.
believe. Okay. And
I know, I mean, I'm, you know, obviously I'm going to favor Timberland because it's right there in my neighborhood, but I mean, it gets the most use from what I've seen. I don't, you know, drive by Barlow too much, but I mean, during the summer months, Timberland is always going. My kid plays there all the time. You know, I don't know where, you know, I don't know how. I'd have to do research to see how well Barlow is used during the summer months, or if someone has that information, that'd be great. I know, like I said, I know Timberland is used all the time, as many months as they can. You know, even during the light sprinkles, they're still out there because my kid plays out there, and that neighborhood, you know, not only does my neighborhood, but it does the 2 apartment complexes. Plus, I think we have another apartment complex going in down the road from there too at some point if it ever gets approved. So I mean, you know, that'd be a good option to put. You know, and I'm not talking. I mean, it's already got fences around it, so I mean, it's not, you know. I'm talking some kind of, you know, awning or cover patio or something, you know. I don't even know what those things are called or what they would cost, to be honest with you. But just something to keep out the heavy downpour and the snow and, you know, stuff like that when it starts doing that. Stop the court from freezing, stuff like that.
The other court that is heavily used is Tupper Park.
Okay.
That's also very,
Oh, that's
very
right. I
used.
forgot about
That's-
Tupper.
Yeah, that's where I go because that's the closest from the splash pad because I live over here. But that one's really used by a lot of people, and
Yeah,
there's
I
like
forgot about Tupper.
apartments. There's apartments right above it as well, and yeah, that'd be really cool.
Rochelle, at Deer Point, we had discussed having basketball courts, and there was a thought or a suggestion from council of covering one of those courts. Is that still on the table?
Yeah, so just to provide a little bit of context, yeah, and this group might be aware of the conversations that were had with council, but there was a request to make the Deer Point basketball court a full basketball court, not a half court, and then to explore the option of covering the basketball court at Deer Point. So we've been, as we're working towards the construction drawings for Deer Point, part of that step is also gathering cost estimates to do this work. And obviously with a lot of these park projects, we have a certain amount of money via the budget that's been allocated to accomplish these parks projects. And so one of the things we've been discovering that is to cover a basketball court, it's fantastic to keep kids and families playing basketball out of the rain. But there's some complexity that comes along with it, and the affordability it's an interesting topic. And at Deer Point, some of the initial estimates we've been receiving have been in the range from $500,000 to $650,000. So it's an expensive endeavor. It's something where if we were to look at prioritizing existing basketball courts, one of the things our staff has also done is, probably first on that list would be resurfacing and taking and improving the existing basketball courts that are there. Because, to speak about the one at Tupper, for example, we looked at what that would cost to resurface that. The answer to that was, well, the concrete is cracked enough that you'd really want to bust it up and replace it all together. And so we had estimates just to do that work because we thought that was our priority as far as the safety and just investing in something that currently exists. So it's a wonderful suggestion and something that we can add to further discussion. We are coming up to where we're going to be talking about the next biennium budget for park projects. So we'll be moving Deer Point into the next biennium. We'll be looking at how do we fund these improvements for the Meinig improvements and restoration that we're talking about. There's, you know, obviously the maintenance that needs to come along with some of our existing parks. And so we can add that to the list of things to consider. And, but again, you know, and David, you said this perfect when we started, you know, contingent on funding, that's kind of the big question mark. And ideally, I think it would be a great idea. It's just, where do we find the funding to do it, and prioritizing what's in the master plan and some of our current needs based on covering some of our existing basketball courts. So
Rochelle, you had mentioned that we're approaching the time to start putting together budgets for the next biennium, correct?
correct.
Would it be appropriate for us to have maybe a meeting dedicated to just that and take a look at all the kind of the tier 1 projects that we have in the hopper now, and then maybe the tier 2s and so on, and start really taking a look at the relevance of those projects and working through to make sure they're all still relevant and setting some priorities. And that would also give us the time to maybe look at folding in some new projects, such as the one that David suggested.
That's a fantastic idea. We can add that to a future agenda item. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the key to that, though, is making it early enough that we have the opportunity to have a robust discussion, which may lead into a second, discussion. So I don't want to leave it to the last minute. If the budget process starts in January, then I would think the November meeting is when we want to start having that kind of discussion, so that we can finalize or pick up the thread in December and put together a recommendation that is timely as opposed to rushed.
Fantastic. Yeah, we will get that on the November agenda. And then to your point, Don, if we continue that conversation, it gives us plenty of time as a Parks Board to provide your recommendation and essentially work with the council and the budget committee as they are planning the next biennium budget. I think that's a fantastic idea.
How does everybody else feel about that? Seeing some head nods there a little bit. Gianna, I'm glad you feel good about that.
I'm okay with that.
You okay with that?
I support that.
Yep.
Okay, I saw Kimberly's head nod. Alex, yes?
Yes.
Well, you're comfortable with that?
Yep.
It's gonna make November possibly pretty busy for us. We have the dedication ceremony. We have ongoing discussions, I imagine, about Meinig Park. Probably having some introductory or additional discussions about Deer Point, but I think that it's pretty critical that we get this talked about in a rather robust way that looks in a little bit more comprehensive discussion and look at the big picture for this. I'll tell you what, without it's interesting. When I first started becoming involved, this kind of discussion was absolutely impossible to have because we didn't have funding sources. And through the work of the master plan and the new systems development charges and the fee in lieu, it's kind of exciting to be able to actually have an opportunity for a discussion that can actually go someplace, as opposed to, gee, wouldn't it be nice, and we'll never get the money for it. We actually do have opportunities to get some funding and get some pretty significant accomplishments done. And I will put my soapbox away. Alrighty, so everybody seems comfortable with that. We'll move on to the next item of business, new business, an overview of Sandy Parks and Recreation Volunteer Program. Staff, what do you have for us, sir?
I would be happy to introduce John to the group. So his team has been working towards a council goal, which was to improve and recruit and train volunteers. And and I'm sure he'll cover this, and I would hate to steal his thunder, but just kudos to Amy and Carol and the whole team for spending their time on this goal, and actually, I would say successfully accomplishing this council goal. And it's one of those things that we talk about leveling up the department, and this is definitely one of those rungs that was needed. And just really proud of John and his team. And without further ado, I'll let John talk about all the awesome stuff they've been working on. So.
Perfect. Yep, you didn't steal any thunder, but like I said, this is team top to bottom. It's one of the things that I love about it. So Carol and Amy are our rec coordinators. Mark and Carolina, our senior services side, equally involved in volunteers as much as the rec department, and we'll get into some of those. And just on the volunteer aspect too, Tiana and her team have been involved with helping people to get stuff on trails done, and it's been fun to see. So I'll just kick right into it. So the City Council's 2023-2025 biennium goal was to reestablish a volunteer program and expand volunteer opportunities. I'm going to go through some bullet points of kind of how I feel we've met that goal and are continue to strive to raise the bar to stay, I don't know, relevant, engaged, and kind of best practices on how we recruit and retain and train and provide information to current and prospective volunteers. And I guess the caveat before that, this is a good goal. I like this goal, but I want to be clear about at least my feelings on this. This is a goal for our department to clean up our processes. I do want to say, since I've been here, the city of Sandy is engaged. They're eager to help. They're eager to volunteer. We don't have to do much to try to get this amazing community to come out and support us. What we need to do on our end is provide better and open communication, track data better, train better, and make sure we're hitting all of our policies. So if we do that, I think it just helps expand and reestablish the volunteer program. But the people in this community are awesome and come out and have been well before this was a goal. And I guess I just wanted to be clear on that. So really kind of one of the first steps we did was vetted some programs that have an online presence to capture volunteers, to track volunteers. And we went with a company called Volunteer Local. And what we're able to do with Volunteer Local is keep all of our information in a centralized location that's easily accessible online. It's a digital platform. And so now if you want to know anything, you can go to one spot through our webpage, find out what our options are. And then by signing up and engaging in that and registering, it kicks us automated emails. And then from there, we have a hierarchy. If it's a Meals on Wheels, we know it's going to go to Senior Services. If it's events, it's going to go to Carolina. If it's a Winterfest, it will come to me. And we have a hierarchy of kind of who triages these when they come in there. And then the other thing that's really great is that we can build and assign shifts that you can then, as a volunteer, click on, log in and log out. And we're able to track that data and get really precise information on who volunteered, when they volunteered, how long they volunteered. And we also have all of that information that we can have to help us retain volunteers later. I'm not going to go through the entire website, but I think it's kind of cool if you haven't seen it to know where it's located. You can kind of see a little bit of the form and function of it. So work. All right, through our Parks and Recreation Department webpage, one of the buttons down below is our volunteer with Sandy Parks and Rec. And it just gives you a quick overview, but inside of it, it's got a hyperlink. And that takes you to the actual Volunteer Local webpage. What's great about Volunteer Local webpage too is that they thematic to look up and link to what our home city webpage is. So this isn't actually a City of Sandy website. It is their Volunteer Local website, but just work with us to make sure that it thematically matches. And then from there, you can see all of the volunteer options that we have, from events to Meals on Wheels to coaches to senior companions for outings. one of the things for going out on our trips for seniors is that you are independent, but we do have some people that are vision impaired, that are mobilely impaired, and we have an opportunity for you to volunteer, go on those trips for free, and kind of support those people that need a little bit of extra help, that aren't quite independent enough to do it on their own. We got our Winterfest volunteer. I'm not going to go through everything. This is kind of the point. Then you can click on them. You can learn about the event themselves. You can get a deeper description of what's going on with them. And then you can just log in with your information. You get an automated email from one of us saying, hey, thanks for doing this. One of our staff's going to reach out for you. And it really starts the process of tracking who, what, where, when, and why. Where before people would kind of call in and ask, like, what do you have for volunteer opportunities? And we'd go through the phone and kind of just talk about what we knew in our heads, but nothing was there centralized. And so depending on who you talk to, depending on what time of the year you talk to, you're going to get some information that could be a little bit different. So I feel like this helps really kind of step up that game.
John?
Alex.
Okay.
Hey, John. I was on the website looking at the volunteer stuff, and I didn't see anything about like age limits. So, and like what's acceptable to volunteer. Like I have a son who's obviously 12 and he's trying to get volunteer hours, but I didn't know, like, yes, he could volunteer, but with a parent, or, you know, like parent supervision, that kind of thing. So do you guys have that like handy, like what you can and can't volunteer for depending on your age?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't have it, which age groups are okay with what, but that is something, and I'm going to take note of it right now, that I think as we continue using this and upgrading it, that information is going to be great to have on there, so that communication.
Yeah, because I didn't want to go online because I was like trying to do one. And he's like, oh, I'd love to volunteer. I said, I don't know if you can. So
Nope.
I wasn't too sure if I should be filling out a form for him.
Great
to try.
question.
Right.
Most likely, yes, but I think that information can be easily shareable inside of each of those volunteer options. So like at our events, say you wanted to go volunteer at one of our runs that we do. Yeah, a 12-year-old could go and volunteer and be at a water station and help cheer on people. Would be totally, make total sense. A basketball coach? No.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was like, there's some that are obvious, but I just wanted to like have a little more guidance, I guess. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that probably asked that. So
nope, great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, just kind of about the first couple slides before I move on?
John, I just had a really quick one. Like, to be a member of the Parks Board, you need to be a Sandy resident. Is there any requirement, says having to be in the zip code to be a volunteer?
Nope.
Awesome.
If you want to come and volunteer for our great city of Sandy, we will let you come.
Awesome. Thank you.
Regardless of, yep. One of the things I just want to talk to you about is just like some of the volunteer opportunities that exist out there and kind of an overview of them. So this would kind of fall under kind of like Carol's guideline. If you were interested in these things that came up, she would get that email. She'd be responsible to talk to you, kind of informing you and training you about that. But we obviously have our Winterfest. Last year, we started Yappy Hour, which was our canine carnival. Longest Day Parkway is our whole community event where we hang out at a certain neighborhood in a certain park and engage the community with our city. Noah's Quest is our annual 5K. We've got Mountain Festival and the Mountain Festival Kids events, our concerts and music's in the park, and then Corn Cross. Other things that we do volunteer-wise, these are more of our like long-term and repeating. So those events, we recruit hard for it. It's a kind of a one-time thing. You can, of course, do it every year, but it's not necessary. But we've kind of got 4 main kind of repeating. The first thing is Mountain Storm Coaches. And just to give you like a quick, just the amount of service they do. Last year, we had about 50 coaches when you talk about head coaches and assistant coaches who donated their time. And about each coach, when you go into games and practice schedules and just planning, you're talking about 50 to 60 hours per coach. So just on that alone, you can think about the amount of time and effort that our community gives into the youth. And it's pretty inspiring, pretty awesome. Meals on Wheels, another huge one. I think Carolina talked to you about this program before. We serve homebound seniors in the Sandy and the greater community area. Right now, we have 14 volunteers. 4 of them are kind of like sub-volunteers when someone's out. We've got 10 regular volunteers, and they are working about 2.5 hours a week, every week, year round. Community gardens. We've got the Rotary Club, which is a group of volunteers that dedicate their time to go out and help once a month. And then we've got just a group called Community Gardeners that, like the garden beds, have their own garden beds and want to help keep those gardens maintained, weed-free, pathways safe, tripping hazards gone. And those meet once a month as well. And then we've got our senior service. A lot of our seniors like to give back to the center itself. And so we do seasonal decorating. We've got newsletters that we print out and then fold and then envelope. We have Meals on Wheels, but we also have prep and cool. There's just a variety of things. Coffee making. There's just a ton of things that happen weekly where we've got a group of engaged community members there. Any questions about kind of this type of stuff inside of our department that we have volunteer options for?
Not so much a question as much as an observation.
Yeah.
You might want to add that you have at least 6 volunteers right now working for you, consisting of PTAB members, Parks Trails Advisory Board members. But the real observation was it's obvious that we have a rather robust group of volunteers that are helping to keep, not just keep the wheels on the bus, but keep them moving too at the same time. And having been to a couple of the recognitions, I know that we're not the only department doing this. Are other departments, such as the library, looking at doing a similar thing with their volunteers?
Yeah, that's a great question. And please, Parks, Trails, and Advisory Board, accept my deepest apologies for leaving you off. You are an amazing group of volunteers who I have grown to know and respect and enjoy your company. So, sorry. And yes, we've reached out to the library is probably the second most one as far as volunteers are concerned. I would say between us and the library, we are the biggest, and we have the most amount of volunteers. And we talked, and we were going to use this as a trial run, see how we liked it after the biennium, see if it worked for us, and then meet together with the director of the library too, and see if it's something that they were interested in. But
Very
this was
good.
specifically for this biennium, a goal for our department.
Very good. I didn't mean to sidetrack your presentation, John. Go ahead and continue.
All right. One of the other things we need to do is recruitment. And that means really how we need to do that is we've got to have a better website presence, which we're working on, and it's helping with Volunteer Local. Our social media, when we're doing events and we need these, we need to be clear on what we're looking for, how we do it. And then a lot of it's word of mouth too, building these relationships, knowing people, going out and connecting people in the community. And then advertisement and communication. So when we have things that are in the movie theater or in the paper, we want to make sure that we let them know that there's always room to volunteer and be a part of this community as well. And then obviously, last but not least, I think Volunteer Local helps. When people call and they say, hey, do you have volunteer options? And we can point them to a clear and concise spot that has information, that has point of contacts, that tells you a little bit about it. I think that makes people more eager and excited to come and join. Retention is how do you keep them coming back? And really that's through building relationships, especially with our long-term ones, our like Meals on Wheels drivers and our coaches. We have the ability to be in close contact with them regularly and talk to them and get to know them, ask about their family. And then some of that too is providing meaningful work. It's great to say, hey, we're putting on an event and we need 30 volunteers. And when those volunteers show up and they're milling around and don't know what they're doing, you can be kind of disengaged with at least your role in it. So providing meaningful work, I think, helps make them feel good about the work they're doing. Open communication, making sure they know who to talk to, how to talk to them, making sure that we are good when we communicate back. Record keeping, we want to know who worked for us, who volunteered for us. We want to know their contact info. We want to be able to make sure we can contact them if we need to. Volunteer appreciation. The last 2 years, we put on a big event at Mining Park. We've had raffle baskets and just celebrating the work that volunteers do. And last but not least, I'd like to kind of point out again that Volunteer Local helps with all of this. And then how we're meeting our goal. This is kind of a long paragraph that ends it the same way, kind of how I started it, that we have an enthusiastic community that's engaged, and the volunteers significantly enhance the quality and efficiency of our programs, and they also help us remain budget conscious. And as our departments grow, it's important that we've got clear policies, access to information, and we've got good communication. And I think that we are, if we haven't met our goal, we are well on our way and making great strides and really kind of upping the I don't know, the standard of how we do all these things volunteer-wise on our end. Any questions overall about kind of where we're at right now with volunteers?
Oh, I saw a hand go up.
Brian.
Yes, I just want to say it looks awesome. I love the progress you guys have put in, and there's been like a lot of evidence and how much work you have been like putting into this and building up the community and making it accessible for them to come in and help out with the Parks Department and just do events and everything. So great job on just like looking for options. I know Event Local is like the one, or what was it called? Event Local or Local, what was it?
Volunteer Local.
Volunteer Local. So they have like finding them and then making sure it works and like incorporating the community. I think it's really great. So kudos. And I did not take offense to your comment of leaving us off the list of volunteers.
I'm offended for all of you. Thanks, Mr. Robertson.
No problem. Any other
Yeah, I
comments?
bet.
Any other questions? Any other concerns? Nope. All righty. Let's see then. I'll move on to grant letter of support for Tickle Creek Park and Trail restoration.
Okay, speaking of funding, so the department is currently putting together a grant through the Oregon Department of Forestry for their urban and community forestry program. And tonight I'm seeking the approval from the Parks Board to have Mr. Robertson sign a letter of support for us to apply for this grant. So essentially what we'd be asking for is a phase 1 of Tickle Creek, which would include evaluation, planning recommendation, and then an implementation plan to restore and repair the trail in Tickle Creek. We've got the urban forestry, which is very important to us. It includes things like inventory of trees. There's a high level of concern for the ash borer, so it'd be heading off some of the invasive species. And one of the things that we've been dealing with is after the storm came through, there was a high level of damage in Tickle Creek. And because it's in the flood FSH, which is the flood slope hazard zone, it's sitting in a fish bearing stream. We can't just go in and we can't just remove logs and clean it up and just and do what we want with it. And so in order to do that, we have to be strategic. And this grant would allow us to hire the experts that would come in and help us do a phase 1 to assess and move forward with the planning for Tickle Creek. So with that quick summary, I did provide a draft letter of support in the agenda packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I guess, Dawn, I'd turn it back over to you if you guys want to discuss and then hopefully support the department in applying for this grant.
Anybody have any questions or concerns or suggestions? Ryan, I see your hands up. Is it still up or did you got some? Oh,
yeah, that was a Zoom failure on my part. My bad. But also, yeah, I'm 100% in support of endorsing a letter. to go for this grant. I think that trail is very popular, and we need to do what's best for the people, the community that enjoy that trail. And so I'm 100% for that.
Anybody else have a question or concern or a comment? I don't see any. I will take that as everybody's being okay with it. I am comfortable signing it. I think what I would prefer though would be a motion and a vote to authorize my signature.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that Mr. Robertson better hurry up and sign that letter.
I'll second the motion.
All righty, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous to me. All righty, I will sign that and we'll get that going. Rochelle, anything else? Staff updates?
All right, real quick, I'll make it brief and then I'll hand it over to John and Tiana. The big news for us is it is officially public. November 2nd is the grand opening for Cedar Park. And we just want to remind everybody, please mark your calendar. You guys are considered VIPs because you are important volunteers for us. Had to rub it in, John.
Yeah.
But please do attend if you're able to. We do have a little gift bag for everybody, and we just want to tell you how much we appreciate you being part of this process. Just thinking about a year and a half ago or so when we were all talking about the master plan for Cedar Park, and then deciding what that would look like, and then you guys helped name the park, and so there's been a lot of work to get here, so it'd be great to be able to celebrate that day with you all. And yeah, just excited to see that come to an opening date. That's my big news. And if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, that's John. You want to report on next?
I sure do. All right, on the rec side, we are well on our way for Mountain Storm recruitment. So right now you can register your 3rd or 4th grader or your 5th and 6th grader for our youth basketball league. You can also register to be a volunteer coach. And one of the things that I think shows how much work we've done over the last 2 years and just where we're at right now, just growing everywhere, is that the first year we did not find enough officials to officiate 3rd and 4th grade games. Coaches officiated while coaching. Last year, we were able to basically squeak by and have just enough refs that most of the 3rd and 4th were covered, all the 5ths and 6ths are covered. And I think that was a total of 7 refs last year. We have 15 interested candidates in our hopper now already. And games don't even start till January. So just, I think the work we've done, how we're continuing to do it, and just where we're at right now after the last couple of years kind of shows that. So that's been really exciting to see the work and the recruitment, how much effort they put into it. Make that part of the job just a lot easier. Yep, grand opening stuff. We're really excited about that. We're hoping it's going to be a big fun event. So we're working kind of all hands on deck to do that. And then on the senior side, it's really just kind of trips as usual. We are going to Hood River to do the Fruit Loop Trail with a group of 14 seniors and going apple picking and cider tasting, and that's fun. And then one of the other things, this is going to be our 2nd annual kind of veterans event where we honor our veterans with a partnership with Mount Hood Hospice. It's a pinning ceremony, and it's for seniors, but really any age demographic to be recognized. And that is going to be in November.
Very good.
Tiana, you want to give us an update?
Hey everyone. First, I really want to celebrate Brandon, one of my fabulous team members. He's been working really hard. I think I'd let you know over the summer he got a CDL, but just this week he passed the laws and safety portion of the pesticide exam. So that is one step closer to him becoming a licensed applicator for the pesticide program. He's studying and hoping to take the 2nd and final test required for that in December. Really proud of him and the way that he is taking everything on and just stepping up to what we're asking him to do. You may have seen my team's out doing lots and lots of maintenance, so we have resealed all the support posts for Fantasy Forest, hoping to keep that playground alive until we can get through all of the planning and renovations that we'll make to Mining Park. While we were doing that, we also resealed the gazebos at Bornstead Park. I can't not believe it, but October 21st, we start installing the lights for Winterfest. We are really excited. We're turning the lights on 2 weeks earlier this year, so installation begins sooner as well. So it is very soon to be all things holiday lights. Some really fun things have been arriving over at operations in preparation of that, and the staff is excited, and so the holiday cheer is alive and well. Some of you may have seen some people out working on Tickle Creek Trail here recently. Two separate things have taken place. I have been overseeing a supplemental environmental project for Public Works. And so that team has been out in the corridor removing invasive species and getting ready for native plantings that will help restore that area. But as Rochelle mentioned, there's a lot of work still to be done. This really is the work that's being done right now was planned prior to all the storm damage we had. And so that wasn't even part of the equation for what we were dealing with when this work began. But nonetheless, it is good work. There is invasive species removal happening. There is native plantings that we'll see coming soon. And then also I was out there with a large group of individuals from FEMA walking the trail and evaluating that storm damage, so that if we are able to move that project forward, we would be able to request some reimbursement funds from that storm. So we're quantifying the amount of debris that is down in the Tickle Creek corridor. Just this week, we put new tables out at Tupper Park, and tentatively, almost a solid firm date, as long as weather doesn't cause any concerns, October 21st, we will see swings going in at Tupper Park.
Yay.
Yes. So Tupper's looking really good. That's all the updates I have for you, unless you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you. All righty. Yes, Kim.
I did have just one observation that I made today. We were at the dog park and it looks like the new shelter is getting kind of, I don't want to say trashed, but it's getting really muddy from the dogs running around the exterior of it. I didn't know if it would be possible to get like gravel brought in just to surround it so that it doesn't get ruined. The rock on it is really pretty. It's super nice to have it there. And I just think it'd be a shame if it like just got really ugly really fast.
Did you say it was today you were out there?
Yeah, today I was at the dog park.
I wonder if we've seen a change very quickly then in how the seed was taking, because I was out there just last week and it was all green grass.
We were there last week and it looked beautiful, but right around the edge of the concrete of the patio that's out there, it's like solid mud now.
Darn. Okay, we will look into that. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else for the good of the order? Not seeing anything? So we will adjourn the meeting at 7:18 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a spirited and exceptionally fun meeting tonight. We will see you soon.
Yes,
Have a good night, everybody.
thank you so much, you
y'all
amazing
soon.
volunteers.
Bye.
Thank you.